Welcome to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. This power couple is building stronger marriages one day at a time. Talking about real issues on love, relationships, and marriage longevity. Let's break down the barriers and engage in healthy conversation with your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie. Take a seat and buckle up because things are about to get real.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Loving Beyond the I Do podcast with
your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me. All right, so who do we have with us in the studio today, Jason?
Today we have Bethany Nicole. Welcome to the show, Bethany. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Thank you for being here.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am an LA-based author, freelance writer, and relationship expert.
Okay.
My relationship sessions are called Written in the Stars, and they work with individuals and couples, and I use all kinds of different modalities, everything from love languages to astrology to kind of figure out what's going on with couples or individuals' love lives and help them create the love life they desire.
And so what got you into that field?
Oh, wow. It's been such a journey. Yeah, I mean, I really started with, I worked in the social services field for a while in child protective services. And so that was really kind of what got me into learning about attachment theory because I use that a lot and learning how to, work with clients, hold space, and really kind of dig deep into what's going on with people to try to resolve some of the issues that are coming up. So I feel like that really set the foundation for a lot of what I do. And then my degree is in philosophy. So I also studied just a lot of different spiritual answers to what is love, what is forgiveness,
right.
What is communication. And then going through, astrology and different courses and intuitive development. And it really just kind of morphed into this, what it's become, I guess.
Okay. Wonderful. So what do your clients usually how do you get your clients and what do they usually come to you for?
I get them from all over the place. I'm actually sort of now breaking more into the wedding industry and starting to collaborate with different wedding planners and sources within that to start doing things like that. It was just kind of a newer aspect. But originally I was doing kind of separately, just kind of advising and then doing astrology or tarot readings. And then I combined it. And so a lot of my clients now just come from all over the place, from podcasts I do, from people I know, or just things I post on social media. And, it kind of resonates with them. I feel like it's kind of funny because a lot of the people I get are kind of submersive about it. I'll get a message, I feel like I might be into this, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I keep dating the same person, but I'm not sure, is this for me? And, and then we kind of ease into it, I guess. But yeah, they just come from all over.
They just kind of stick their toe in the water a little bit.
So is it usually?
Is this going to help? Or do I need something like this? And then it's well, let's just sit down. Let's just do a reading. Let's just do this. And then it becomes a whole thing.
So are people usually looking for love or they're looking for how to get love, or are they looking to how to make their love better when they come to you? So is it just kind of a multitude of all kind of those things?
It's all of those things. I kind of talk about having two sets of client base. So I have the individual who feels like they're dating the same person over and over, or they're just not enjoying the dating process. And they're what is happening? Why do I keep drawing in the same person? Or I get a lot of what they call new dawn daters. So after the pandemic, a lot of people came out single. And a lot of them have never dated or never used dating apps, or are just kind of well, I don't want to repeat the mistakes of this failed marriage. How do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one set. And then the other set would be couples. So couples who are about to get married, soonly-weds is what they're called.
Okay.
Who just want to work on a nice foundation of communication, or they just think it's interesting. Like they've never, you know, really done an astrology thing, or they're just like, I don't know what my love language is. Like, you know, just like trying to build a better foundation. Or couples that are just kind of experiencing like a rut, or they're like, we've had this same fight. Like,
right.
You know,
they can't get over.
Not get past it, but they don't really want to do traditional therapy. So they're like, well, maybe this could help. And it usually does. I mean, you know, a lot of it is just very simple, like miscommunications, or like, you have different conflict styles. So you have to learn to like, you know, and it takes a lot of the blame and the shame off of it, I feel like, because a lot of times the couples are like, you know, feeling this failure of like, we keep having this same fight, or like this person has, you know, bad communication. And it's like, well, it's not bad communication. It's just, you know, maybe they're avoidant attachment style, or they, you know, have a different love language, or they're a Libra. And so this is how they
communicate. Right.
This is what they're supposed to do. So we have to work with that.
So what do you usually tell people when they say, I don't want to make the same mistake twice? What do you usually tell them as far as them? Because what resides is within them, what they're doing and what they're attracting. So what do you usually tell people when they say, okay, you know, what do I do? What is usually your first step? So is it the tarot cards? Is it, well, what is your sign? And so how do you kind of dig into that? If I was one of your clients and I'd say, okay, well, how do I stop doing it? What is usually your advice? If that's a good question, like how do you usually go into that area?
Yeah. So it's still kind of a process as far as like, you know, what clients are comfortable with, because I get kind of the spectrum. You know, I'm LA based, so a lot of my clients are, and they're very comfortable with tarot astrology. It's not, you know, but if I have clients that are a little bit more maybe traditional, that could determine how I interact with them. But if I have my way, right, like if they're open to what I want to do, I do their astrology chart before I even meet with them, so I can look through it and see what might be going on, what they're naturally maybe going to attract, or might naturally need to work on just based on their sign. And then when I get them, I'll do a quick reading if they're comfortable with that, because that just helps me kind of see what might be going on. And then we just have a conversation about getting to know them and what is their conflict style, what is their love language, what is their attachment. Like, I just want to get all the information about them I can. And then that's even before we get into like what they think their problem might be. Like, what was the biggest problem in the marriage? Or what do you feel like is the biggest problem in your dating life? Are you attracting like emotionally unavailable? Are you attracting like toxic communicators? Are you, you know, just trying to even get to the root of that? And then, you know, depending on the astrology, the tarot, and what they've said, then we can start kind of breaking down, okay, well, what's going on with you that you're calling this in? How can we tweak it so even if you are calling it in, you're not allowing it into your life. Like, even if it pops up on your radar, you're sending the message like, this is not allowed in my experience anymore. I don't want this. Like, you're not the person for me. And engaging less and less, and just kind of getting to the root of what it is, because that is what it is, a root, something that played out over and over.
Yeah, so I got a question. So is it easier to work with individuals versus couples?
It really depends.
It depends on how deep the situation is that they're in?
Yeah, and how open they are to change, or how willing they are to acknowledge things. Like, you know, sometimes a partnership, they are such a good support system because they can be the mirror for each other. But, you know, you also have the opposite, where they're pulling each other down, or they're, you know, not willing to change. And you can have the same thing with an individual who's like, it's not me, I just date the wrong people, they all suck, I'm fine. And you're like, oh, so much work to do.
So take us through some of the things that you do. So you said if you had your way. So just not really focus on the person or the situation, but just focusing on your techniques and what you do. Like when you said you have your way. So what do you look for? What do you look at, and how do you go through it? So in far as maybe understanding, right, the Taurus, you know, with a Libra, or you know, just take us through your strategies or mythologies that way. So kind of give us a feel of what you go through as the expert.
When you have your perfect situation.
or not the perfect situation, just kind of what you go through, right?
Yeah. I mean,
if you can generalize it, right? If you can kind of take a step back and not really focus on the customer, but just more of yourself, like, okay, usually this is what I would do and this is how I would do it. And this kind of relates to this, sort of like that.
Okay.
There's a backstage pass to what goes on.
Yeah. The first thing I do, again, if I have my way, is I get their astrology and I'm going to look at their top three. So that's their sun, their moon, their rising. And then I'm also going to look at their Venus, which is the love planet.
Okay.
And then I'll look at their Mercury, which is communication. And that gives me just even in that, I could go deeper into like North Node, South Node, but really that gives me about as much info as I need to get started. And if they're really into it, we can dive more into some of that. But
okay, so don't go further. So let's go into that. You said you do their sun, their moon, and their rising. Okay, so what do those three things usually tell you?
So that tells me, so the moon is, how we feel. It's our emotions. It's how we process those things. So that gives me an indication of where their emotional state would be. So if, for example, like I'm a Scorpio moon. So that's water, that's deep, that's emotion, that's loyalty. That's, going to be I want really deep connections. I'm not good with surface level. And then you look at the shadow side of that, which is like it's the sign of the Scorpion. So it's got a stinger. So it's like, if you do me wrong, now we're gonna go.
Okay. So what is your astrology sign?
It says Scorpio.
No.
Aries.
That's her moon. That's her moon. Okay.
Yeah. My sun is Aries.
Aries. Okay. All right.
And that's also my Mercury. So,
okay.
So that's a lot of fire. That is like how I communicate. We're going to get to the point. We're going to get to it. If there's a conflict, like I want to talk about it right now. And I have to really monitor kind of how I say things because everyone's not good with like fire coming at them. Right? Everyone's not
I
appreciative
understand
of that. But I also tend to date, because of that, I know that I do really well with like Leos, other fire signs.
That's so funny because I'm an Aries and he's a Leo.
Oh yeah, that's actually the soulmate like sign. They usually do that. So because you process things generally like communication and whatnot, like you're gonna have that similar fire. So you like if he's firing at you, you can just kind of take it and be like
and just suck it in, right?
Like you're not going to be like a Cancer, for example, like another water sign with a fire sign, like that hold all that deep emotion. Like that is a tough couple to work with because their communication is just opposite. And, an Aries firing at a Cancer, like they're just going to like crumble with that,
So what is your sun?
So my sun is Aries, my moon is Scorpio, and then Virgo is my rising. So that.
Okay. So wait, what is your rising?
Virgo.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that. So what does that mean? Your rising is the Virgo.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how you come across to other people, like maybe what they think of you the first time they meet you. And it's kind of where you end up going. It kind of comes out more in your life as you get older. You kind of come into it a little more. So
what is the Virgo? What is that? What exactly is that comes across? It's not fire. It's not water. So what is the Virgo? How you come across? What is that? That?
Virgo is earth. So Virgo is very grounded, very to the point, very organized. So as far as like how that shows up in my relationships, like it's again with my communication, like I don't love like super emotional. Like if I'm trying to process something, I want someone to like get to the point. Like, what is the solution to this? Like, what's the solution base? Like, I don't want to circle the drain on how we feel about it. Like, I want to like
get right to it. Just hit it right on the head. Let's just get.
Yeah. And that's a tough one, right? That's a tough one. So I really but since I, know how to work with it, I can find partners that do well with it because it's just a lot. It's a lot of and it's very masculine. Like those are very masculine, energies. And so, it's just difficult, I guess, to find a partner that's like on board with it. You have to get a lot of the fire. Like, again, I date a lot of Leos because it's just like we're on the same page with it.
Like more compatible. Okay. So
That's
then,
funny. You know, it's funny because you mentioned that you said you're spewing out fire, and then you're very demanding with that fire. Like, this fire is directed at you, and I want this to be over with.
Yeah.
So now let's say you're doing you. So how do you bring in the tarot cards now? So what do they contribute to it and tell you more, and how do you do them?
Yeah, so I usually use oracle cards, which is just slightly different because I can kind of match it a little bit more with the person or the couple, because the traditional tarot can be a little intimidating, and depending on like religious backgrounds, people can get weird about it, and like because it has like the devil card and it has the the death card, and if you're coming to me for a relationship reading and I pull the death card, like that's not going to feel good.
I hope not. Well, it could mean that relationship is not what you need to be in, right? So
yeah, or it could mean like, death is actually in the tarot deck usually more of like a rebirth. Like you have to
die,
right, to bring it more in. But like if you're not familiar with that, that doesn't look cool. Like,
right. Okay.
Your relationship is death,
So your oracle cards, they don't have those cards in there.
Right. They have kind of a different set. So like I could use like a relationship oracle deck that has things like freedom, communication, and then it's got maybe like different chakras on it, just different things that maybe feel a little bit safer for people.
Okay.
And I kind of try to match, like I usually do like a 30-minute consultation before I book them. So I get kind of a vibe of like, okay, I feel like this deck is going to like suit them more.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, so I've got all their astrology, and then I'm just kind of like tuning in intuitively and using the tarot to just see like what's coming up. Like, is it going to be like, for example, if I pulled the freedom card, that generally is going to tell me like, okay, somebody doesn't feel super free in this. Like somebody feels a little bit like suffocated or tied down.
Okay.
That's like really simplified. I usually do like a full spread, but generally speaking, it's just giving me an idea of like.
So how many cards do you usually do, and how do you do them?
I'm really free range with my readings. Like I don't even like limit the card numbers, and I like very much do my own type of spreads. Like I don't say like this card means this. I do it as like, okay, it's placed here and it's got these two on this side. Like I know that means X, Y, or Z. Like it's very intuitive. It's very free range. Like another Aries quality, like I don't like to be told what to do. Like no one's gonna tell me how many cards I'm gonna do. Like I'm gonna
so she's arguing with the box. The box says pull 6 cards with 2 outside. No, I'm gonna do as many. No, I'm not gonna listen to that.
Exactly.
All right, okay.
That's funny.
Feisty.
Yeah. Feisty reader.
So what exactly, when are you in March or April?
April.
Okay. All right. April what?
5th.
Okay. All right. Well, happy belated birthday.
Yep.
Thank you. What about you? Are you Aries?
Yeah. No, I'm Aries Taurus. I'm actually on the cusp. Yep. I'm the 20th.
Okay. Gotcha. Yep. Well, happy belated to you too.
Thank you. Okay. So you read the cards and you lay them out, and do you do it as many cards as you feel as though you need the reading, to help you kind of gather more information? Yeah,
it's very much like, it's just, I don't know if you've ever done a spread or whatever. It's just very called. Like you just feel very, I don't even really know how to explain it. Like you just feel, where they're supposed to go. You know how many there's supposed to be. You know what it's supposed to, like the formation. So yeah, I mean, it just really kind of comes as it comes. And just from using it so much, I know that that's what it means, I guess. Like you use it enough and you're like, okay, this card matched with this card. I know that this means X, Y, or Z.
Okay.
So do you pull more cards based on if you're getting a certain vibe from the couple? Vibe. Yeah, you need more cards.
Vibe.
I'm like,
what do you say? Right, I know what you meant.
Right, thank you. Did you need more cards? Is that why you're not limited? You just how does that work?
It really just comes out as its own spread. Like it's just almost like, I don't even know how to phrase it, like preordained. Like it just is its own vibe. Like I don't have I don't really have control. It just kind of does its own, like I'm almost the vehicle for it, and it just comes out as it comes out, and then I read it like that. And then you can do like clarifier cards if I'm like, this is interesting, I've never seen this, what does this mean? Or like I feel like I'm not getting the answer,
right,
or they're holding something back, or like then I can use like I can add and just ask for clarification and use like 2 or 3 additional cards, but the spread itself just kind of comes out on its own.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So now you've taken us through the spread. You've done your reading. You have a little bit information now. What do you do next?
It kind of depends on what's coming out and what, like, you know, what I feel like the issue might be. We might kind of.
So what came out with you when you did yours? Because I know you were getting some revelations. So when you was like, what is going on in this relationship? He's a Leo. He's moon sign this. Like, we're supposed to be lining up. Let me get these cards, right? That's what you did.
Yeah.
I can hear you. You're like, let me get these. What is going on? So when you laid them out, what did you tell yourself? So what was next?
I mean, then it would be, I personally get the freedom card a lot, like in my own relationship spreads, because I really need to feel that freedom, but I also need to feel very secure in the foundation of it. So if I'm getting all of this out, like there's always going to be a communication card too, because I have to watch my communication so carefully, my reactions. I have to use like all of these like mantras and different things to like just before I just, you know, fire off, and like finding partners too that like
it gets better with age. Yeah, you get to learn how to control it.
We're, you know, but I think part of that too is also finding partners that are compatible with that, because like, you know, I don't want to spend the whole relationship being like, okay, pause, like you're triggering me.
Right. You want to have the freedom to still be you.
Exactly. So like, and that's one of the things I kind of talk with people too about is like, you can force yourself into things. Like you have a lot of free will in relationships, and, you know, you can marry or be with a lot of different people. You can be compatible on different levels. So when people are like, you know, asking for a reading of like, is this the right relationship for me? Or like, should I be in this? It's like, I don't know. Is it like you can force yourself into this? I can tell you all the different ways to like tuck yourself in or shift this or compromise that. And if that's what you genuinely want, like I'm here for it, but I don't think that's what people generally want. But I think that's the thing that, you know, people are like, well, if I'm not supposed to be in this, it's like, but you have free will. You are allowed to respond to the universe and say like, I want this to work, or I want to be in it. And sometimes like, you know, there is like aspects of maybe fate or destiny or whatever, or God or whatever you believe that is going to push you out of that. But generally speaking, like we have a lot of free will. We have a lot of choice. And so if you are okay with being in a relationship that's more secure than passionate, and you feel good about that, like I'm not here to tell you otherwise. Like I'm here to support you on your journey. But
so sometimes people kind of come to you looking for you to kind of tell them what to do, instead of realizing that you're making your own decisions. And whatever I tell you, you're going to, or whatever you do, you're going to make that your reality, right? Because you're making the choice if that's what you want. Right.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's the same thing of like, oh, we have different love languages. We have different signs. Like, is this like doomed, or can I make it work? It's like, you can do whatever you want to try to make this work. And like, but it's like, do you want it to work that way? Is that what you genuinely want? Or do you want to live in a partnership, in a life where you're more free to be your natural inclinations and where you feel more comfortable with that? Or like, you know, but we see a lot of like couples that would rather just be secure than passionate. And then you get affairs down the road because they think they can live without that. But so again, like, you can force yourself out of that.
But we were talking about Bethany, so back to Bethany.
Wait a minute, but I have a question about Bethany. Now, when they find out that you read and you do the tarot cards.
Oh, you mean the mate?
The mate.
So you're
and you
boyfriend,
tell them that,
right? So you're dating someone, you're getting to know someone.
Like, well, what do you do? And he's like, wow.
Yeah. I really try to not like read too much for like I read more on like, what do I need to do in this relationship? I try not to do so much of a reading on like, the relationship or them or like anything like
but
that.
she's in LA, so they're all cool.
I'm in LA, so we are
right. So they're all like that's
Cool.
that's
They're
the
not
norm.
running from it.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So what happens when he's not a Leo? What happens? You go, oh, well, we were going strong, but you're not a Leo. You can't handle this.
Or so go back to. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally I kind of attract more of like, you know, I kind of have my setting set to like attract more of like fire signs. Or sometimes I also feel like I've gotten a lot of like Libras, which is the opposite of Aries. And that can go really one of two ways, right? Like that can go really well because the Libra is very calming. It's very centered. So that can either help bring me to center or it will drive me absolutely nuts. Like, you know, and like, for example, I mean, it can be a really good pairing just depending on where the Libra lands. But like, I always give this example of like, you know, I once was dating a Libra and I was just going through this crazy time in my life. And I called him and I was just like, I don't even know what to do. I'm like at a loss. I got nothing. And like, I'm just so sad. And he was like, oh, I wish I was there to give you a hug. I was like, I don't want a hug. I want like advice. I want someone to like get in here and help me. And so that's the aspect of Libra that like, I will murder you. Like I cannot attack. Like, I need someone who's going to be like, all right, here's some options. What do you have? Let's think about this. Like, that's what I need in a partner. And
right.
So the calming aspects of Libra are great in a lot of ways.
Right.
Because if we do get in a conflict, they're going to be very calm. They're not going to like come at me sideways and then I'm coming at them. Like they're going to be very like centered.
They're not going to push you out of the car. Right.
Right. They're going to be very, but then that's also like that quality there's not a lot of fire in it, depending on what their other placements are. So in an emergency, they might not be your best bet for like getting you out of it. You know, I mean, they could be because they're the calm voice of reason or something. But yeah, so I think it's just, I mean, but I've also dated other Libras that have been like such a nice calming, like, and have a little more fire that could help like logically.
In a dilemma situation.
Right. But it just depends on like where they land on that scale, you know?
So back to your card. So you're laying them out. You thought this was a good relationship. It was moving in the right direction and you're doing it for you. And then you get the cards and like you want, because we talked about free will, right? So we actually can, you know, create whatever it is that we want in our lives and we can make it seem as though what it should be. So things aren't going right what you thought they were going to go. You read your tarot card. So what do you do when it's saying something that you feel that you don't want to do at that time? So how do you, you know, with your conflicts and what you're doing in your own personal life, because as you said, you focus on you and not necessarily reading the other person. So what do you do at that time when it's telling you what you need to do, but maybe your will is telling you, I really don't want to do that
right now. Yep.
I mean, that's the tough part, right? Like, but I guess I kind of feel like when I'm doing it on myself, it's kind of like I already know sometimes what it's going to say. Like I'm already like, oh man, I just know it. Like it's like getting reprimanded in school. Like you kind of know what you did. You kind of know like, okay, this maybe isn't the relationship or like, you know, so it's like, but again, like I think I've spent enough of my life going against my own intuition and going against, you know, like, whatever you want to call it, spirit, the will of God, whatever, that I'm like, this does not work out well when I do that. So like, it's just kind of, and that's kind of what I want to like portray to, you know, clients and stuff too. It's like, you're welcome to do whatever you want.
Right.
But in my experience, when you go with like the flow of your intuition, then you're going to have a lot less of a rocky path.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of, it's just is more like, you know, acknowledging like, okay, this needs to, like, I need to end this, or I need to like correct this, or like, you know, it's kind of working into that space. And it might not be immediate, right? Like sometimes if I see through the spread, like, oh, this needs to end. And I know that it needs to end. It's another week or two before I pull the trigger on it. Like, you know,
so if you pull the trigger, what do you usually tell people? Right? Because you know your intuition and everything is telling you where it's going.
Now the cards are telling you.
Right. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to go against it. And so how do you tell that person like this? Just, I mean, I know there's ways, but what do you typically do? Because you know that you need to pull the plug. So how does that usually go?
I mean, truth be told, like in my own life, I try to engage as little as possible in it because, I mean, it depends on the audience, right? But like, and there have been relationships where they've asked me like for more specifics and I will give them that. But I think generally speaking, I kind of try to keep it just short and simple. Like because it usually is more just like, there's not a connection or I don't see it being long-term or I'm not romantically attracted to you or like, you know, whatever it is. So I feel like that's enough because it encompasses
something that, right.
Yeah. Like I don't need to get into the, like, I think it's really unattractive to wear white shirts. I don't like your shoes and, you know, you don't brush your teeth enough. Like, I think I can just wrap that into the box of like, I'm not romantically attracted to you or like, I don't feel connected. Like, you know, unless it's maybe like a very specific issue. Like I have had like first dates where somehow I usually try to vet this stuff out, but somehow they kind of got past the gate and, you know, we're on this date.
They slid through, went up under.
What wasn't listening to your intuition?
Yeah. Something broke down there. And so we're at this, you know, we're on this date and, like I had a guy who was just telling me that he like drink every day and like I don't drink at all. So I don't even know how he got in the gate of this, but like you know, he's like, yeah, I drink every day and I smoke a lot of weed. And I was just like, I didn't even finish. I was like, you know what? Like, thanks for coming out. Like, we're just not, this is not and I was very specific of like, you know, this is not a lifestyle that I personally lead. You're welcome to lead your own. But like, I can tell you right now, we're not going to be on the same page. And, you know, he was actually really offended and was like, that's so judgmental. I was like, okay, like, do you really, like, you drink every day, I don't drink at all, where you smoke or not constantly maybe, but a lot, I don't smoke it at all. So like, where do you feel like our lifestyles are gonna line up?
How are
like,
we compatible?
Right.
How are we compatible? Like, that's gonna get old so quickly of like, you want to go out drinking and I'm gonna be like, no, like, I mean, where are we going with this? And, you know, so if it's something like really specific and obvious like that, I might just, I mean, but I still try to encompass that in like lifestyle, right? I didn't say like, sounds like you have a problem or anything like that. I just said like, but I mean, you know, like I just tried to encompass it in like, that's a lifestyle difference. Like we're living different lives, basically.
Wonderful,
I like the way she generalizes that. You're out. I like you're out. It's like, you know what? Our lifestyles just don't match.
They don't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's
the root. You know, you can get into the nitty gritty, but like, I'm not sitting here trying to fight with this dude over dinner. I'm not trying to like get into some long drawn out thing with somebody that I don't want to be in a relationship with. Like, I'm just trying to like, you know, let's just all go on our own paths here. It was, you know, lovely exchange. It was great getting to know you. Hopefully we can be friends. And like, and it does, I feel like, successfully lead to like more friendships because like, it's really hard to be friends with someone who's like calling out every thing about you they don't like. Whereas like, I'm not feeling this romantically. It's like, you know, after some time passes, you really can like be more friendly and be more on, you know, good terms. And so that's kind of my goal is like, get out, be friendly. You know, but I think it depends on your goal. Like I have a friend, she's a Capricorn. So Capricorn is very like harsh, like very like, you know, to the point. And so she's really funny because she'll like tell them exactly what it is.
Oh my.
List. And, but like she always gets good responses to it. And she's not mean about it, but she's very like, it cracks me up because there was like a musician that she was like, I just feel like you're not mature enough to like be in a relationship because like, look at, you did X, Y, and Z. And he was just like, she like called him out and I'm over here like dying laughing, reading messages like, oh my God. But he was great about it. He was like, you know, thank you so much for your feedback. So like, I don't want to say that my way is the only way. It works for me. But like, you know, her way works for her. She's really never had too much like clap back from it. Like she's always had mostly people saying like, thanks for the feedback. So, you know, whatever works, right? Like
that's right. Don't waste your time.
That's interesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's direct though. Yeah.
Yeah. And she, like, her thought process is like, well, I want them to grow and develop and understand, like, and if I'm just vague about it, then maybe they don't
Right.
really get, like, that they have done something to cause this. And I'm like, that makes sense. I mean, you know, I think it's just to each his own. Like,
You want them to grow as you break their heart. I got it. Yeah.
So what is your goal in this whole area of your business? Like, what is your goal, your aspiration to help people in relationships and couples with what you're doing? So what is your goal as far as business wise?
yeah, I mean, as far as, like, impact on the world, or
whatever
vision of it all.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So what impact are you bringing? What do you hope to, accomplish with helping relationships and individuals and couples kind of understand what's going on in the background?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like I look around and I see so much conflict and chaos and like these shallow connections. And I feel like the pandemic really highlighted how we are not getting to the right relationships. We're not getting to the right levels. We're just doing things on really surface level. And it's really affecting us in, like, a global way. You know, if we're not creating these foundations and connections, then, I mean, you know, we've all been in relationships that are chaotic or not going well, and your whole life is just a mess because so much is going into this. And it's like, you know, what if we could build these strong connections and these strong foundations and actually feel connected to the person that we're with on a really deep level? Then maybe we're not seeing this chaos. Maybe we're not seeing these levels of depression and fighting and everything else. And I just really feel like, you know, it's time for us to get real with ourselves and each other and figure out, like, what is going on here and how can we build foundations and connections and communication, and then take that out into the world. Because when you're having these communications with your partner, now you're learning these skills and you can take them into all of your relationships, whether it's with bosses, coworkers, because I guarantee if you're avoiding tough conversations with your partner, you're probably avoiding them just everywhere. Or, you know, your toxic communication, you know, is coming from somewhere. And, you know, and again, too, a lot of it, like, relationships are mirrors. So there's a lot of wounding within us that, because we have parents who didn't have good connections with each other, or weren't able to build a good home, or weren't able to parent us well because of what they had going on. And it's like the reach of this, like, we kind of brush it off. Like, you know, it's like, oh, dating and relationships. And it's like, no, this is like our foundation of our society. Like, this is not just, like, cute. This is like, we need to be focusing on this. And, you know, how often do we hear, like, depressed people saying, like, I'm not heard, I'm not seen, I don't feel understood. And it's like, you know, if you're not able to create that in yourself and with your partner and with your family, then yeah, of course, you're going to feel really isolated in this world. And you can be in a partnership and feel extremely isolated, you know, and that's, I don't know, almost worse. I feel like the times that I've been in those relationships where I'm like, you know, you're sleeping in the same bed and you're still just like, I don't feel seen. I feel alone. You know, that's, like, almost worse than just, like, sleeping in your bed by yourself with like all your animals and Netflix and, like, whatever else. Like,
so how well do you think you're being received, right? Because you said people just don't, they think it's cute, right? This society, and I would say where we've evolved to, this kind of generation is thinking, like you said, oh, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's cute. You know, it's just one relationship, or, you know, by the time I get this age, or I don't have to be married. So how do you think people are receiving that and really understanding that we need to understand relationships? We need to understand ourselves. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I think the pandemic has really given a platform for that, because people really got smacked in the face with, like, wow, this was not built to last on so many levels. We don't communicate. Now we are in a room together 24/7. Like, and so I think that people are a lot more open to it, maybe coming out on the other side of that, of like, oh, this is serious. Like, this is legit. Like, I am, you know, making mistakes, or they're making mistakes, and we're not getting to any kind of deeper level. So I feel like it's generally becoming more received. And I feel, you know, that I think traditional therapy absolutely has its place, but I think people are now looking to kind of some of the deeper levels, because, you know, talk therapy, again, has its place for sure. But I feel like it really just can stir things up and then just leave it. You know, you're not getting at like, you can like intellectualize, well, I have this wound because my parents did X, Y, and Z, but it's like, but if you're not touching where it's coming from or the emotion or even how it's presenting in your physical body, you're not getting at it. You know, you're just on the surface level of it. So a lot of these, like, you know, and too, like couples, a lot of why I use astrology and tarot is because A, they don't know what's going on with themselves or each other, or B, they do, and they maybe don't want to say it, you know, because how hard is that to say, if you're in a relationship with someone you do love, but you're like, I just feel so suffocated in this, like, that's really hard to say.
Sure it is.
But if I pull that card and I'm like, okay,
someone else says it. We put it up on you. Someone else says it.
Like, yeah, then it's like, you know, that gives them the opportunity. But if you're in talk therapy, you know, if the therapist is really intuitive, they might pick that up or they might hear it or whatever. But I think that some of these alternative healing modalities are really becoming more accepted. And a lot of the people I get have been through some of the more traditional ones. And they're like, this just is not working. Like something is not working. And it's like, this can help kind of figure out what's on a deeper level.
Okay. I know that Jason and I usually dealing with the younger generation. And I don't know, is your clientele more younger? Because they're when they're dealing with relationships, they seem to always say, when we talk with them, right?
Yep.
Things are complicated.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you, this younger generation, I would say from 30 and younger, you know, they seem to think that relationships are, you know, just so complicated and so diluted and so unimportant. So what would you say to those people about the complication of what they're assuming or thinking that relationships are complicated?
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. They don't need to be. You know, there's a lot of different pieces of it, right? Like, especially when you're breaking it down of like, what's your sign? What's this? What, you know, what is your love language? What's attachment theory? But at the end of the day, it's like, if you are compatible, that's it. You know, like you can have differing love languages, you can have the most difficult fighting signs and still somehow you're making it work. And that's the thing. It's not that complicated. It's actually very simple. Like, are you compatible? Are you getting along? Are you able to talk through conflicts? And, you know, what's complicating is that we're not taught how to do this right. We're not taught how to be in positive and healthy relationships. We're taught it's okay to sleep with people without knowing them. We're taught that's normal. We're taught we shouldn't feel connected to someone after we have sex because that's needy. You know, we're taught just all that we have to be best friends with our exes and, you know, just all these really
crazy,
all these things that you're like, you know, and feeling like, you know, the big one too is that we can't speak up and say like, no, I'm not comfortable with you having dinners and sleepovers at your ex's. That's insane. Like, you know, we're not, like, no, we don't have a say in that. That's, you know, that's fine or whatever. And, you know, that's an extreme example, but even just saying like, I need physical touch in this relationship. I need X, Y, and Z. Like, we're not taught how to do that. And we're not taught how to receive that. And we're not taught how to have these difficult conversations. So when you're not having the conversations, you're not speaking up, you have all these weird distortions in your mind of what's it, what's not. Yeah, that relationship starts to feel very full, very complicated, very difficult. But it's like, it's you and that person, and that's the bubble. And everything else needs to be on the outside, exes for sure. And,
yes.
You know, and the sex can wait a minute until you know, get to a deeper level or whatever. And you know, you should feel connected to that person after you have sex with them. That's what sex is about. And, you know, so I think just getting rid of all of the outside noise and getting back to just you and that person, then it's a lot less complicated. It can still be hard, right? But it's a lot less complicated.
All right. Yeah, you have any questions?
There's nothing wrong with being hard. I mean, relationships are a little difficult just because of where our backgrounds and where we come from and what we bring to the relationship.
Yeah,
and who we are. That's okay. But if you're willing to work through it, I mean, if you're compatible, you work through it and you make it work.
So with single people who may be looking for those relationships and saying, it's just so hard, I just can't find,
I don't know where to find them.
Do you tell them more of the self-development, you know, after you bring the cards? And so what do you, how do you kind of tell people like,
Go get yourself together.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I absolutely do. Like I tell people that, we are really magnetic. We attract things. I think we send out vibes. We really do. Like, when people walk into a room, you can tell like, oh, I don't want to mess with that person. Or, when they've done all these studies, like this is kind of a little darker, but like, they have like, abusers or whatever are like, they can see 3 people on the street and they know which one of those 3 just by their vibe that they could take advantage of, that they could do. So we are sending out signals whether we know it or not.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So what I want to work with people on is, especially individuals in the dating world, are the 3 kind of levels, right? Because our boundaries are A, energetic, B, physical, and C, speaking, like verbal. And so what I want to work with them on is like, what are you sending out energetically for one? Let's start there. Are you sending out a victim thing? Are you sending out,
right?
Are you wounds, like, is your wound space just like projecting out of you?
Right,
like, let's figure out what the wound is and try to like work on that. And then, the physical of like not giving them access to you. If you're talking to this person, on an app or whatever, and you're like, I don't feel good about this. That's it. Don't give them access. Don't go on a date. Don't let them in your space. You're physically boundarying that. And then, the verbal of like, if you're on a date and something doesn't feel good, you're saying it. Or you're in a relationship and something doesn't feel good, you're saying it. And that you're really holding all of those boundaries. Like, don't talk to me that way. Or like, this doesn't feel good. We're not going to go on a second date, whatever it is. Like, but but when you get to the energetic boundary, then you're not even attracting those people in. But then if they get through the gate, you have to be really you're like,
who let you in?
Somebody.
Wait a minute. How did you get here?
Like slamming that door, and that sends the message to them, to you, to the universe, to God, to whoever. Like, this does not belong in my experience. We are not doing this anymore. And like, eventually, like you get some who get past the gate, but eventually your goal is to get to the point that you're calling in the right people. And if they're not, you're disengaging immediately.
Right.
And then when you're calling in the right people, then dating is actually like enjoyable, because even if they're not maybe your soulmate or your romantic connection, like you're still having a nice time. You're still having a good conversation. You're still enjoying this person. It's not a nightmare. But if you don't have any of those boundaries set up, right, you're just taking whoever's coming in.
Yep.
That is nightmare territory. That is bad date after bad date. That is attracting the same people. That is, not listening to your intuition. So like, if you can get all of those aspects kind of in alignment, then your dating life is like enjoyable. Like my dating life is enjoyable. I enjoy it because I'm not, again, the gatekeeper. Some people get in, but other than that,
we're not talking about that.
They get in, but they don't last.
Right.
They don't last. They get a door slammed in their face of like, you are not it. This is not what we're doing. So, but I mean, that only comes because I too have spent many years, navigating those seas as well. And like, having to learn how to, navigate that. So my stuff comes from like, somewhat of a professional thing, but it's also experience based. Like I'm not like saying this from an ivory tower. I'm like, I've been there. I've been swimming through the waters, and I'm telling you, like, you don't have to do that. Like that's not how you have to live your life.
And just getting to that point where females are actually able to verbalize it, like you said. That's the biggest thing. You don't feel it. I mean, you know something's off. You're not following your intuition, but you're not saying it. You're not verbalizing it. You're not speaking up that, no, I don't like the way you treat me, or no, I don't like the way, I'm not going to accept this type of behavior. And just being, I think, like you said, if we go into the relationship the right way, then those things, like you said, it makes relationships a whole lot easier, because now we're not having to deal with those craziness that that trap us or make us feel insecure or whatever. And so being able to verbalize that.
But I want to be in a relationship. I want to be in a relationship because I'm tired of being lonely. So he comes along or she comes along. And I'll say, you know what?
Yeah,
maybe I'm not going to pay attention to my intuition or anything else because I really want to be in a relationship.
Yeah, for those people like that, right? But that's what she's saying. She's like,
so the door is like wide open. No one's watching. The
door is wide open. You're letting in anyone off the street, and you're gonna get what you get. Like,
I guess that's why relationships are crazy. Or difficult. What was it?
Complicated.
Complicated.
Yeah.
They're complicated. Or they feel, I think too, it takes a while to also understand, like a big one I hear is like, but I love them, but they love me. But, you know,
Yes.
and you kind of like, it's hard to explain because we also sometimes get into this mindset of like soulmates. Like, I think they might be my soulmate. And it's like, well, like, you know, there can be lots of reasons we're drawn to people and lots of reasons that we feel really connected to them. But we have to start navigating the fact that we can be with multiple people. We can have good relationships with lots of different people. I do believe we have maybe one who's kind of the top, but, you know, the one that's like our most compatible, the one that, you know, I do believe in that, but I don't force that on people. I definitely want to like elaborate to them that, you can be in lots of different relationships. And so just because you feel so connected to this person or you feel like there's love, it doesn't mean you have to be in it if they're treating you badly. Maybe they're not healed enough to love you in the right way. And so you're not ever going to be able to have a good relationship with them because they're not working on any of that. So like what you're seeing is what you're going to get. But like opening them up to the idea that like you can love more than one person in different ways. And what you feel is like the most love you've ever felt right now, maybe won't feel that way down the road. It's like, you know, if you had like a high school first love, you think that's it. There is no way you ever feel anything more than this. And then like, you know, I look back on that and I'm like, oh, that was cute. You know, like not anything close to like what I've felt for people now, you know? And so I try to like encourage people to remember, like, this is not the last person that you're ever going to date or love or be with. Like, there are people out there you could love more and who will treat you better. Like that exists, and you have to expand into that. Because if you think this is it, it's this or loneliness, you will put up with so much crap. But if you're like thinking like there's a sea of people out there that you could feel this way for, that actually, or more, and they treat you well, like that exists. That reality is out there. You have to like expand into it, you know?
Yeah, you have to grow into it. And the reason why people do that is because they don't think it's possible for them. And that's part of the healing process, or the realization that it is possible. It is, you can have it. It starts though with you realizing it.
Yeah, but Bethany, you said something, loving more than one person or being in a relationship with more than, you know, one person. That can get kind of complicated, right?
Like I don't mean like at the same time.
Oh, okay, all right, because that's how I took it.
I mean, like you can love more than one person in your lifetime, in your lifespan. Okay,
I got you. Yeah, all right. Yeah. I say, wow, that just got complicated.
I think if you're not married, my thing is if you're not married, you can love different people. I mean, if you're single, if you're single and you're trying to figure out who's your person, right? And you're trying to figure out yourself, right? You can't just be stuck on one person and trying to make it work. You have to be able to be open to realize who's that person for me. Because if you're so stuck on this one relationship,
I'm going to miss the love of my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right, Bethany? Right. Like Bethany said, she's like, if she held onto her high school sweetheart, she wouldn't say, oh, that's so cute. Right? Now she realizes that. Exactly.
It was cute at the time.
She realized he served his purpose. Right?
Yes. And he's a lovely man, lovely human being. He's married and has kids now, and that's great. And you know, so I don't mean to make it sound like I would be stuck with him, but like I did not, you know.
No. Right.
Yeah. Like,
but we realize that
as he's like, well, okay.
Hopefully he won't see this, right?
No, but we understand because people.
Is that what you thought of me?
Yeah, because you know people have you know high school sweethearts that you look back, you're like, whew, I dodged a bullet there, you know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I think you just have to be open to that concept that like your life is long and you will love people differently and you will love people maybe more and less, and like that it is possible. Like you can find people you're more compatible with. Like, but I think part of like what you get into with gaslighting and the narcissist loop and all of that is like. A lot of us have been with people like that. Yep. Most of the people I know have at least had one rodeo with somebody like that.
Exactly. Sure. Right. And right.
Who is like, you won't find someone else. You're the problem. You're this, you're that, or they focus in on one really small thing about that person that, they just dig into. So that feeds into their own fears of like, oh my gosh, it's this or I'll never be with anyone else, So I think I've seen a lot of people with that. Like that was something I had to overcome in my life too. So I'm like very familiar with that territory of like, you know, that's really coming from internal stuff. Because if you think about, I mean, it's just an opinion, right? Like, for example, like I'm 5'3", and that's like a normal female height. But if I were to date someone who's like, you know, you're way too tall, like, I'm just going to mock you. Like, I'm not going to take that personally at all. I'm going to be like, that's such a weird, that's on you. But if they said something like, you're too fiery, no one else would want to be with you, like that could hit, right? Because that's like maybe something I do feel, but again, there's no difference between those two things. That is just how I personally feel about those two things.
So what would you say for young girls who may have had experience like that, right? Like you're too fiery, you're too spicy, you're too demanding, you're too bossy. What do you tell that person about themselves and about the other person?
So it kind of depends, because there are aspects where like they're not wrong, right? Like maybe they're like, I am really fiery. I have to work on that. I can't just run around blowing fire everywhere and being like, let me find the right person. You know, like there's a reality to that. That I do have to work on. So you have to kind of walk the line. But again, if it was the height thing, that's learning to recognize, like, I don't feel connected to that at all. That's a complete other person's preference. So it can be a tough one, like walking the line of like, you know, but that's where we're like blessed with discernment. Do you feel like that relates to you? Is that how you feel about yourself? Is that something you want to work on and monitor? Or is that just something so completely ridiculous that you don't need to have it in your experience? Like, because you don't want to go the other way. And that's another one I see a lot with women too, is like they've been told maybe something about themselves. Like, we'll do the fire example, like, you know, you're too fiery, you're too this, you're too that. And so they just start rejecting that completely, as far as no, I just need to find the right person, and there's nothing wrong with me, and all of that. And it's like, but there's a balance, right? Like, no, like, this is my personality. This is like what I'm born into. Like, if you believe that we come in through, you know, these signs to have these personality traits, if that's your belief system, I'm meant to be fiery. That's what Aries are. That's what we do. And that's great. But does that mean, like, does that give me a free pass to like demolish people? Like, no.
Right. There has to be, you're saying there has to be a balance, right?
There has to be a balance, but I also don't want to, you know, but again, I don't want to get with a Cancer, because they're just never going to, you know, feel good in that. I'm not going to feel good in that. So you want to find the balance of finding someone that, you know, like is more compatible with you and can handle some of the traits that are inherent to you, while also monitoring, like, are these out of control? You know, do they need to kind of be reined in? Because you don't want to go too far one way or the other. You don't want to ignore it completely and say, I don't need to work on it. And you don't want to take it to the point where you're like, no one can love me, you know, like, you've got
right.
Yeah. So it's helping them to find their own, you know, because also too, like, I can see what's the mirror that for them, but I don't truthfully know how they are in the behind closed doors in a relationship. So like, it's helping them recognize their own voice of discernment, which we are all blessed with. We just shut it down a lot. And so like learning how to, you know, find that voice of, you know what? No, like, I'm the right height. Like, this is ridiculous.
I'm not buying into that.
I'm not buying into that. Or being like, okay, like, this is maybe something I need to work on, and like taking the shame off of it. Right. Because we all have stuff. We all do. We all are avoidant or fiery or, you know, whatever it is, like, and there's no shame in that. Like, we've all come here with different things, different backgrounds, and like, you know, that's fine. We just need to figure out what it is, and we just need to work on it. And that's it. There's no shame. There's no judgment. Like, it's just like, everyone work on your stuff, and, you know, like, and we'll be a lot happier.
Sounds good. Do you have any questions?
No, this has been such a blast. I really enjoyed Bethany.
So we usually ask, give one tip. If you could give someone one tip to work with today, what would it be?
Oh man, it really is like just getting to know yourself so well. Knowing, and if you want to use the tools, I feel like they're really helpful, honestly, like love language, attachment theory, like you know, your own signs, like whatever it is. I feel like those are such helpful tools. But if none of that really appeals to you, like just like on a very basic level, what do you want? What do you want out of a relationship? What do you want out of your life? You know, what do you want out of a partner? And just hold really firm with that. Like take time with it and really dig deep and just know yourself. Because if you know yourself, even if that's all you have is just this really deep intrinsic knowledge of yourself, that's magnetic. You're going to be pulling in the right people. Your relationship is going to improve. And I know it sounds like kind of cliche, like know yourself, but it really
No.
is.
No. A lot of people don't know themselves.
The problem is that it's cliche and people just think people say it, but no one actually does it. That's the problem.
Right.
There's truth to all these little coins and quick sayings and cliches. There's truth to every one of them.
Yeah, it is.
That's why they're there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And just getting real with yourself of like, what are my relationship patterns? What are the things I need to work on? What are the things I'm really good at? Like, you know, just all of that stuff is so great in bringing into a relationship and calling in the right partner and calling in the right life experiences, right? Like it's so huge on so many levels.
Wonderful. It has been wonderful. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you so much.
So how do they get in contact? So tell me about the book, Bethany.
Yeah. So the book Apologies I Never Got is dating and relationship horror stories, phrased as apologies you never got from the people who never gave them to you. And it kind of just encapsulates some of what we've been talking about as well. Like there's the horror stories and then there's the sections that talk about what they're about. So there's like gaslighting, dating.
Is this sort of like a cleansing book? So when you said the apologies I never got, is it because people hold on to saying, why he never apologized?
He never closed it out.
You never moved on. So is it more of a cleansing type of thing? That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, it's learning to write these for yourself so that you can just let them go. And the ultimate, you know, underlying current is like forgiveness and self-healing, that you don't need that apology you never did, because you can heal yourself and you should heal yourself and move on. You don't need them to apologize because A, they probably never will. And B, even if they do, like it's not the quick fix you think it is. It's not going to clear that all out. Like you've got to clear it. Yeah.
So when you get that apology, be like, that's it? That's
not
what I was looking for. I needed closure.
All these years you've held on to it, and you're probably never going to get it, so it doesn't even matter.
And when you do, it's going to be like, that's it.
It's like subpar. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for being our guest.
Yes, and tell us where we can get all your information. What's your website?
Yeah, it's BethanyNicole.com, and that's where you can book the consultation. It's like a 30-minute free consult just to make sure we're like a good fit, that I can help you out. And then after that, you can book sessions from there as well.
All right.
What about social media?
Bethany Nicole Author is the Instagram handle, and pretty much that links to just all the things.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Well, I think that wraps up another episode. And as always, we're in it to win it.